There's a new device called Magnetoencephalography, not EEG, MEG. And this is mind-blowing. The probe doesn't touch the body at all. The probe is out here, and they're reading the consciousness activity of your brain. Stop. The point is this: your thoughts are not contained in your head. You are broadcasting your thoughts into the field.
In today's video, I'm going to be looking at how science silently and by implication acknowledges the existence of thoughts outside of your brain, outside your body, in the quote-unquote field. I'm going to be talking about this magnetoencephalogram and how the very existence of this technique to measure brain activity implies that our thoughts are energy which exist outside of our brain. Now, one of the main issues with this is that we don't know what thoughts really are. All that the scientists are looking at are electrical currents that come with brain activity, and they have been able to measure this with MRIs, EEGs, and now, as I'm going to be going into this video, MEGs. Now, the first two require physical contact, require nodes and things to be connected to your brain so they can measure this brain activity. Now, with the MEG, as Bruce Lipton says, the thing is not even touching your head. It measures the quote-unquote field that your thoughts create, which implicates that your thoughts exist outside of your body. And now this is the base, this is the fundamental principle that I've been talking about in this channel, and that I've been going into all of these theories of quantum consciousness, of consciousness existing outside of the brain, of everything being connected, of the quantum principles, and all of these things that a lot of people think they are just woo and they are just nonsense and so on and so forth. By implication, science has proved that thoughts exist outside your brain. Before I move forward, I would like to remind you that if you want to join the growing discussion on consciousness and would like to be notified on the latest scientific discoveries and theories surrounding this topic and how they connect to ancient mythologies and philosophies, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, as I'll try to upload at least one video per week as I continue with the outline.
Magnetoencephalography is one of the most complex and most advanced non-invasive brain mapping tools available, both clinically and for research. The best way to explain it is to think of your brain as being this machine that makes all kinds of electrical signals, and those electrical signals actually radiate out magnetic fields or magnetic energy. And what the MEG system does is it has this elaborate array of sensors that can pick up these very minute changes in the magnetic fields the head or the brain is producing.
Magneto means magnetism, encephalo means brain, and ography means images. So magnetoencephalography means images of the magnetism of the brain. Because the brain is made up of billions of cells called neurons. When the brain does stuff, these neurons are sending electrical signals to each other, which, like all electrical signals, generate magnetic fields. Magnetoencephalography measures and locates these magnetic fields, which indicate the electrical activity of neurons, which is the activity of the brain. With magnetoencephalography, we can see the brain working as it is working inside someone's head.
Alright, so at this point, I will ask you that if you do not understand that this previous clip, watch it over and over and over. I'm probably gonna link a label to it, so just watch it over and over and over until you understand what they are implying. A lot of us are in different points of understanding. Some people don't even know how an EEG works, how thoughts work. We don't really know. The scientists do not know what exactly are thoughts. As I said, all we see and what is implied here is that brain activity creates electricity, and this electricity has a magnetic field which exists outside of your brain. How can something that is happening inside you, within you, according to the materialist status quo, within your brain, exist or could extend its information outside of you? Now, without going into the whole issue of Qualia yet, this paves the way and gives reason to some of the ideas that these that have been previously thought of as woo or new age or nonsense. The concepts like an aura. What is an aura? What is a vibe? What is something? When people say, this is a common saying, people say that they could cut the atmosphere with an eye when there's like an unfriendly atmosphere, something like that. People think this is nonsense. This is just random. This is just intuition or whatever. Science is proving that these fields, quote unquote, exist, and more than these new age things or cutting the atmosphere with a knife, there are theories like Rupert Sheldrake's morphic resonance theory, which are going into this phenomenon in detail, and a large part of the scientific community still thinks that all of this is woo and nonsense, and Rupert Sheldrake has been awfully criticized about his theories, and he has spoken out how there is a current scientific dogma. I've been talking about this as well. While we have to acknowledge that the phenomenon exists and it's been proved by science, all of this is real. Now the problem comes when we try to interpret what exactly is going on here. To me, it is a little bit baffling how there is not an actual impact to what this means. They just talk about how this machine can read the magnetic fields around the brain, but they just say it's so casually and so normal. When I looked at it, I reacted like Bruce Lipton on that initial clip in this video where he goes like, "This is crazy. This is actually your brain sharing the thoughts outside of you." And I've told this ties into the whole concept of the existence of a quantum consciousness, thing that the newer scientists are looking into, and things that have been written in ancient scriptures all over the place. The idea of the Spirit or the Holy Spirit or the Father or the Kingdom, or in those ancient religions, we are all living in the mind of Ahura Mazda and Zarathustra, and so on and so forth, the Bill of Maya, the Atman, the Brahman. These ideas are in ancient scriptures, and now modern science is looking into it and is finding out that there exists this magnetic field outside of us, and our brains create it, our thoughts create it. I talked about this before. I made a video just going into the idea of pre-mortal existence, and this has a scientific study attached to it on how it's been proved that mice or mammals in general dream about their life on Earth before being born. And the implications that I made in that video is that somehow the consciousness of that being, of those mammals, exist or has some sort of interaction with the world they're coming into. So the idea that everything could be connected and they have access to the information of the world outside of them. The implication is that they exist outside the world. Now, all of the ancient tales and the literature goes on to say that souls exist outside and they attach, they incarnate into a new body, and that's the process of the cycles of life and death and so on. So this is more of the literature, but the science is proving it, and this is really interesting. I'm gonna link that video somewhere on the screen. I'm bringing this up all discombobulated right now, but I speak about it a little bit more clearly in that video. I also talked about the OR theory from Rupert Sheldrake and Hameroff, how they think that there is quantum information within the cells in your brain, and at the moment of death you release this quantum information into a larger field, into a larger database, if you may, that exists outside of you. And again, science is proving that these fields are real and your thoughts create them. Now let's go into the issue of qualia. I'm gonna link that video from a scientific theory of the soul from Rupert Sheldrake and Stuart Hameroff somewhere on the screen right now. If for any reason I am not able to link any of these videos, you can always find them on the description below.
Fields are an interesting mathematical construct in physics. The idea of a field probably came from the fact that there are forces that are clearly seen between two objects without requiring any physical contact, like, well, magnets. So a field is the area around a point or an object where a force exists. For electric fields, for example, It is the area around a charge where electric force exists. And for magnets, it's just the magnetic force which we spoke about earlier around a magnet or a magnetic object.
Alright, so the way that these magnetoencephalograms work is that they measure the information, this magnetic field that is created from your brain activity. Your brain activity, your thoughts, your ideas have an electric charge, and they create this field as we are seeing now. Now, one of the main arguments from the materialists is that something that is not tangible, something that you cannot see, you cannot take it as it is real. But does that mean this does not exist, that you cannot see these magnetic fields outside of your head? According to the principle of how this device works, everybody has a magnetic field around their heads. You know, as I said, you talk about auras, you talk about souls, you talk about all these things, vibes, even the idea of a vibe. So now, I talked about this in my previous video, this quantum theory from a neuropsychiatrist, from Peter Fenwick, that is saying that the brain is some sort of filter. It's part of some of the larger theories on the brain filter, that your brain filter certain things from the electromagnetic spectrum. There are certain things that you cannot see, that you cannot hear, and only through doing x-rays or things of that nature you can actually conceive as real. They become tangible. Does that mean they do not exist because you cannot see them? No, they do exist. They've always been there. You're just ignorant of these things. I'm going to link that video somewhere on the screen. It's a really interesting theory which ties to all of the other theories that I've been talking about. So, I like the idea that here when we're talking about this magnetic field, we're talking about a force in between two objects. Now, this is a thing. There is something. There's no empty space. There is something in between. Now, you talk about quantum entanglement. The idea of quantum entanglement is when these two particles interact with each other, even if they are spread apart for long distances, they react to each other, meaning that there is a connection, this spooky action at a distance. Now, when we talk about the literature and the subjective parts, and they say everything is connected, it's all connected, I'm going to go into it a little bit in the future, but I just want to build upon the idea of what a field is. When we talk about an electric field, when we talk about a magnetic field, when we talk about this attraction, this in between two physical things that we cannot see, but it exists. There's something there. And now modern technology is allowing us to measure these things, and when we measure them, they become tangible, they become real. And now we are at the point where we have to start theorizing based on the newer information that we have at hand. And at the end, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about information outside of ourselves, coming from within ourselves. Now, how do we measure this? It involves a quantum process.
The magnetic fields caused by brain activity are tiny and faint, so we measure them with highly sensitive magnetism detectors called SQUIDs, just like you'd use a highly sensitive microphone to measure a very quiet sound. If you were measuring a very quiet sound, you'd have to do it in a very quiet room, or else you couldn't hear the sound over the noise of air conditioning next door and cars down the road. And you get the same problem detecting the brain's magnetism over the magnetism coming from nearby phones and computers and from the Earth itself. To block out this noise, MEG is performed in a shielded room built with thick layers of metal that block magnetic fields from outside. Another complication is that SQUIDs, our supersensitive magnetism detectors, only work when they're cooled down to about minus 270 degrees Celsius, which is almost the absolute coldest that it is possible for anything to be. Liquid helium can be used to keep the SQUIDs this cold. The SQUIDs are then arranged in a sort of a helmet, with a few hundred of the detectors held right up close to the head. Some specialized systems have smaller helmets to better fit children.
So, how do these sensors pick up the signal? Well, MEG sensors are called superconducting quantum interference devices, or in short, SQUIDs. These small induction coils are cooled to approximately minus 270 degrees Celsius using liquid helium. This allows for superconductance, reducing the signal loss to a minimum. This is crucial since the magnetic fields induced by synchronized neuronal firing are much smaller than general magnetic noise in the environment. At these SQUID sensors, an electrical signal is induced by the magnetic fields, again through the principles of induction, but this time in the opposite way, from a magnetic field to an electrical signal.
Alright, so this is where things start to get a little bit very complicated. So I'm just gonna read it from this webpage, more what the superconducting quantum interference device means. If someone is new to the whole idea of quantum physics, what are the implications of the quantum world, so on and so forth, I made an in-depth analysis of the double slit experiment. This is the experiment that made scientists in the 1900s just wonder about reality and about what exactly is reality, and it just broke every definition. And this is a struggle that has continued until today. We don't have an answer what exactly are quantum physics, what's going on, what's the nature of our reality. So I'm gonna link that somewhere in the screen, but I'm just gonna read this and I'm gonna link it in this video, this little article here of what a superconducting quantum interference device is. So a superconducting quantum interference device, SQUID, is a mechanism used to measure extremely weak signals such as subtle changes in the human body's electromagnetic energy field. All energy, it's all about energies. Ancient scriptures is modern science. Einstein said something about this. So a SQUID consists of tiny loops of superconductors employing Josephson's junctions to achieve superposition. Each electron moves simultaneously in both directions because the current is moving into opposite directions. The electrons have the ability to perform as qubits that theoretically could be used to enable quantum computing. As Stuart Hammer of Roger Penrose said, the brain is a quantum computer. It seems, and these qubits right here, these qubits are just information. So in order to not get confused, because I know even this is confusing for me, you have to understand that even scientists today, they don't have an answer to what exactly quantum physics are. And you know, there's this whole debate whether consciousness, what is called the observer effect, is involved in reality, in the things that we see. It's there's a huge debate. So we don't know what exactly this is. So I'm struggling with this. Probably people, if anybody made it so far into the video, they're struggling with this. We're all struggling with this. We don't know what these things are, but what we do know is that we are talking about information. So through this process where they go through liquid helium and they go through very low temperatures and they manage to transfer these magnetic fields into information using this electron superposition and whatnot, they become these qubits. We're talking about information. This is what matters at the end of the day. We're talking about information. So your brain activity generates information. You call it electricity, you call it magnetic field. At the end of the day, all is information. We can talk about energy as well. So this information that is translated, as that other guy said in that previous clip that I showed, it says that the magnetic field is turned back into electricity, and that's how they make the imaging of the brain. So it goes on. One of the device's most promising uses is in magnetoencephalography. This MEG, this is what I'm talking about in this video, the process of measuring magnetic fields to enable brain imaging. Physical processes such as muscular or neural activity in humans and other animals, everything, create magnetic fields as small as 1,000 billionth of a Tesla. Second Fridge magnet generates about 1/10 of a Tesla. So everything creates this magnetic field. It's all information. It's you know, you start talking about reality being a simulation. We are in some sort of a matrix, and this is something that has been talked about in those leaked documents from these big government agencies. I'm gonna link it somewhere on the screen. I've talked about this before. You can find it below if I can link any more things. I've talked about this all throughout. So we're talking about this information from the magnetic fields. It's just in the MEGs. A recent study. Now this is what I want to. I'm not going to talk about this anymore because I know a lot of people struggle with this. I struggle with this. We all struggle with this. Nobody knows what's exactly going on. But this is where I'm going to make the leap from what exactly we're talking about, information, into Qualia, into what exactly is going on. A recent study used SQUID-enabled magnetoencephalography to measure the surprisingly large level of activity in consumers' brains that is evoked by choosing between, for example, brands of ketchup. This is what it's all about, ketchup. What I mean is, this is what I really want to talk about in this video is Qualia. The scientists, they see magnetic fields, they see electricity. This is what we're talking about in these MEGs and so on and so forth. They have this brain image and they locate where the brain is being activated through the brain activity and so on and so forth. But what is the subjective experience? Qualia, Google Qualia. What is the problem of Qualia? Is when we look at all these neurons firing and all this electricity and all these magnetic fields, what is happening in the experience of the observer is they're looking at colors, they're tasting chocolate, they're looking through brands of ketchup. Which one looks better? Which color do they see? Where exactly are these mental images? The meaning that this ketchup, perhaps somebody is used a specific brand of ketchup in their early years and they think about their family or eating with their family. Well, I don't know, and they correlate all of these ideas and they have emotions from this. So all of these emotions, all of these mental images, all of these things that we're thinking about, our dreams, our pleasures, our fears, all the subjective part of the thought process, these no scientist has ever seen. We cannot look at this. We only see the electricity. We see the magnetic fields. We know that they exist outside of our physical being, of our physical brain. They exist outside of us in this quote-unquote field. But where are they? Where are they? Are these images, are these feelings inside the particles, inside the electrons, inside the magnetic field? Where exactly are they? And we start going into the hard problem of consciousness, the hard problem of qualia.
Nevertheless, resulting patterns look quite similar and enable us to pick up different rhythms, such as a delta, theta, alpha, beta, and gamma activity.
Alright, so finally we arrive to the problem of qualia. We go back into the idea of brainwaves, into this theme of brainwaves. I made that video named Brainwaves and the Mysteries of the Universe. Then I changed the name. I changed it to Brainwaves and the Transcendental Experience. I'm gonna link it somewhere on the screen. I think I ran out of links on the screen, so you can find it below. This is one of the most important videos I made. This is the most recent research on the entheogen experience and psychedelics. It was made by Christopher Timmerman, and what he found basically is that during the breakthrough experience in psychedelics, this is when people see aliens and they are in the presence of God and they are revealed the mysteries of the universe and they are having this highly complex experience that they cannot put in human words, very similar to the near-death experience when people see angels and they meet God and so on and so forth. According to their quote-unquote subjective experience, what happens is that they go through the slowest brainwaves, which are delta. Now, going a little bit into all of these brainwaves, I just want to explain them very fast with someone who made it so far into this video and is a little bit unfamiliar. So this, as I said, this is what scientists see on their screens. This is what the EEG and the MEG show at the end, is the brainwaves, and the brainwaves are measured in terms of their speed. The fastest is when brain is really active into something, really engaged into something, is the fastest, the gamma waves. And in that, I made a video about this on the first scan of a dying human brain. What they realized and what it showed, it was by accident, they made an EEG scan on a dying human brain. I'm going to link it somewhere on the screen. I think I ran out of it. You can find it below. This only happened in 2022. This is the first EEG capture of a dying human brain, and there's tons and heaps of research coming out of that because that has huge implications. So what happened is that this individual went into gamma state. When this happened, he was dead, but his brain was very active. He was dealing with something, and a lot of people think that he was going through a life review. He was going through this subjective experience that people and hundreds and millions of people have experienced. I've been linking this video on and on and on. I'm going to link it again somewhere below. The first consensus statement, scientific consensus statement for the future research of near-death experiences. also happened this year in 2022. 2022 has been a huge year for the study of consciousness and afterlife and near-death experiences and so on and so forth. We started to look at it scientifically. I will link that somewhere below. So hundreds of millions of people are having these experiences, and what they realized with this EEG scan is that he went into this gamma state. What they find in the psychedelic studies, in antigen studies, DMT and psilocybin and whatnot, is that the brain goes through all of these strange brainwave patterns, and it becomes hyperactivated, and it goes from delta to gamma to beta to alpha to theta. It's just a chaos, which could explain the range of emotions and the range of subjective experience that people go through. So as I said, fast is the gamma, is when people are really active into something. Beta and alpha is the waking state, when you're in your common waking life, doing things and taking the bus and so on and so forth. Theta and delta are the slowest ones, are when you are you get into states of meditation. When you talk about ritualism, and I've spoken about this before, when the ancient Hindu ascetics were going Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, and they go and repeat this, and they and even Catholics, when they get a rosary and they sweep through the beads, saying some sort of incantation, they're going into a rhythm, they're going into a trance. This is the key of meditation. It's going into this theta and delta. Delta is what they call the dreamless sleep, which a lot of scientists think that there is no dreamless. One thing is that when something is dreamless, and another thing is that you cannot remember, very much as people do not remember fully their transcendental experiences when they are in the delta state. So what this research from Christopher Timmerman showed is that when people are going through these deep transcendental experiences, as I said, meeting God, meeting the angels, meeting the aliens, and being revealed and getting downloads of the ultimate reality in the universe. You talk about this subjective experience and the idea that there is a field outside of us, and the information is in this field. When people having these out-of-body experiences through near-death experiences and so on and so forth, they see what's going on around them. So it seems that consciousness is not isolated to the brain, and all of these studies and all of these techniques and MEGs and so on and so forth is proving just that. But this is the most important thing, and I want to finish with this because this has gone a little bit longer than I wanted to, but this is really, really important. As I said, the video is linked below. When people are going through this highly impactful subjective experience, which is probably what happens also in near-death experiences. As I said, there's only one scan for near-death experiences, and people are still talking and researching and building upon it. But when it comes to psychedelics, they prove this. People are going through the theta and the delta during the breakthrough experience, which means these are the slowest brain waves available, which means that the brain is not really active when this is happening. What is the implication here? The implication here is that these extreme experiences are most likely not happening within the brain. They are happening somewhere else. And in that video, I speak about this threshold, where people in their subjective experience explain that they were not allowed to go into these realms. They talk about realms, they talk about these non-physical realms of energy or entities and things that are happening. They're not allowed. They're told you do not belong here. And when you go into the subjective experience, in the near-death experience, they are told it's not their time. And they have to make a choice. Do you want to cross? If you cross, you're never going to see your family again. Your life, whoever you were before, is no longer. You're going to transcend. You're going to go past. And people say they feel this. They feel that if they cross the lake or the gate or whatever their imagination or their subjective experience is presenting to them, there is no turning back. And then they say, it's not my time, and they go back into their bodies. So it seems that whatever external intelligence, whatever external phenomena is showing in the subjective experience, the brain and the information within the brain is making that choice, whether to remain in this egocentric piece of machinery, which we call the brain, or leaking into the larger consciousness, which is basically the theory from Penrose and Hameroff, into this larger sea of consciousness, which is exactly what this technology is suggesting. If the qualia, the nature of our thoughts, our mental images, our feelings, our emotions, are somewhere not only within our brains, but even outside. They can be engaged with, measured outside our brain. And the data is showing that when people are having this deep experience, they are in the slowest brain fluctuations, the slowest brain waves, basically no activity. Where is all of this happening? It leaves room for the ideas of a central database, of a larger field of consciousness, of something beyond our physical, material existence. This is the implication, this is the suggestion. Of course, this is way more complex than I make it seem, and there's still a lot of research to go through, but most of it is pointing towards this direction. If you're on the path of finding the truth about reality and our purpose as humans on Earth, the information that I have to share concerns you. After a lifetime of research in philosophies ranging from Buddhism to the occult, I've encountered themes and patterns along some baffling information that is beginning to be seriously studied by science. A Rational Divine Outline, The Ghost of Jesus, is the first iteration of this project, where I analyze the message of Jesus without dogmatism, fanaticism, or religious bias. You can find my work available on Amazon on the link below. If you find this work valuable, consider subscribing, sharing, and following me on social media, as it will help others in the same path to find this information. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.